I'm Dana Moriello, and you're listening to This Is a Thing, the podcast where I interview entrepreneurs who started unusual businesses about how they made their wild ideas happen. Today, we're talking to Dave Campbell, founder of Taco Cat Games. Here's the wild idea: turn a fun, silly, hand slapping card game into a worldwide phenomenon and build a game business that creates games that can be learned almost instantly, enjoyed by the entire family together. I wanted to talk to Dave because I'm in total admiration of him for turning a passion for play into such a successful business. Stay tuned to hear how Dave dreamed up games while on the road as a traveling salesman, how his game Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza outsold Uno on Amazon, and what he has in store next. Enjoy the conversation. I know that before the idea of having a game business was even remotely on your radar, you were deep into games as a hobby. Tell me about how deep you were as a hobbyist.
It really started when I was young. I have great memories of playing games in the summertime. As a family, we'd play Monopoly, we'd play Risk, we'd play all the classic games. But then I found Dungeons and Dragons, and I dove into Dungeons and Dragons. And to this day, it's still just an absolutely wonderful game.
And when along that path of being a game hobbyist and a game enthusiast did you think, I want to make my own game?
I was doing a lot of traveling, and I was involved in outside sales. And so as I would drive to these different appointments, I'd be dreaming of different games that I could create. And as a creative person, I really needed to develop these things. And I always took the opportunity to make games, make cards, and get them in front of my family. And I got to the point, I was like, well, I've got to make these. I don't want to just scratch them out on paper or scratch them out on cards. I need to breathe life into these things. And that's what led me to starting this company.
And was the first game that you designed or even that you thought of as an adult while you were working, or were you getting into this even earlier?
I was getting into it even earlier. As a kid, I would think of ways that I could augment games or add a little bit of something special to War, add something special to Crazy Eights, add some kind of new character development into Dungeons and Dragons. And as I grew into adulthood, I tried different creative things. But I always was drawn back to games and gaming because it's just my true passion. I think about it all the time. And so I needed to scratch that creative itch. I'm one of those people that really need to do that. I can't not create things. I cannot not create games. And so this Taco Cat Games became the full expression of that.
So, given how passionate you were about expressing your creativity and designing games, did it occur to you as a possible career path that you could go into when you were choosing the first jobs that you should take as an adult?
Not really. I didn't really think of it that way. I thought of it as something that I was going to do on the side, like painting or poetry or something along those lines. Like I thought of it as like a form of art that I would use to scratch the creative itch that I had. I never really thought about it in terms of a career. And it didn't take until I was older. In fact, it wasn't until I was 40 that I actually was like, you know what if I actually produced these things and sold them? I know it sounds funny, but I didn't even think about it until that time.
So, you didn't choose this as your career path, but you chose something else. You mentioned you were traveling a lot for your job. Help paint the picture. What was the day job that you had at that time?
I ran a sales agency. Along with my father, we sold industrial equipment. So that's why I did quite a bit of traveling. I traveled the Midwest, and I'd get into jobs where they had something that was maybe a little bit more technical and they needed some assistance. And so we would go in and show different things that might help them with that. And I really did like that job. It was very interesting. The problem was I had something that I loved that I started doing, that I grew, and something that I liked. And so eventually it got to the point when the thing that I loved started to really grow, that I needed to make a decision. Do I move from the thing that gave me security and the thing that I liked and the thing that was like a normal job type thing? Or do I move towards the thing that was growing and the thing that was my passion, and the thing that was my love? And clearly I went towards the thing that was my love.
Well said. I really like that story that it's not always about running away from something that you dislike. You can have many things that you like in your life, but when you find that thing that you truly love that rises above the rest, that's really special. So it sounds like when you were on the road, that's when you really started to have all these generative ideas about games that you could create. Was there something about that job that was bringing those ideas out of you in a way that, wasn't happening as much before?
Yeah, it was because I was having a lot of time on the road and I had a lot of alone time. I'd be in a hotel for a couple of days, and your options are like, hey, do you turn on the TV? Do you read a book? Do you try writing a book? There's any number of things that could, grab your attention. Again, as a creative person, I felt like I needed to make something. And so as I had all this time on the road, I was like, well, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go make games again, like when I was young, so I could scratch this itch. And that's when it all developed.
What was the first game that you remember thinking about when you were out on the road just daydreaming?
It's almost kind of funny to say now, but the first game that I started dreaming about was the simple game of war. It's one of those just base games that people automatically know how to play. And so I just wanted to bring in some more empowerment elements, some elements where you could just switch a couple of things while still having that baseline understanding of play. That original concept, although it never actually became a game that I published, was the first thing that I started to work on and play with my family. And that through line actually connects to Taco Cat games today, where when we're creating games, we want to have some familiarity in the game. So people, when they look down either at the box or at the components and they see the game, like, I kind of think I might know how to play this already. And then so you get that little bit of familiarity, but then we try to flip it on its head somehow or smash something new into it to make a totally new experience.
I love the simplicity of your games, the simplicity plus creativity that's kind of become your hallmark. So when you had this idea for this war variant, when you're on the road and daydreaming, what do you do with the dream? How does the dream start to become real?
Literally to this day, I do the same thing. I get blank cards or index cards, and then my binder, and I start scratching out the idea. I think it was called Jolly Roger War. So I'm scratching out this idea for Jolly Roger War, and the number 2 is now the scurvy dog or something. And then this is what he gets to do. And then this is what the number 3 gets to do. And so I just sketch it all out. Then I get it into cards.
So are you traveling on the road with these index cards in your pocket so you're ready
Oh,
to...
yeah.
Okay. So
Oh,
you're
yeah.
out on the road, you're doing the traveling salesperson thing, you have these index cards, you start scratching out this game. Once you're kind of in your hotel room with this and it seems like there might be something here, what do you then do with it? When you say get it in front of people, who are you then sending it to for this very first game?
My first gameplay is almost always with my family.
So you send Jolly Roger Ward to your family to start playing. And
Mhm.
what's the reaction that you get to this first game that you're kind of putting in front of them?
Well, with the first game, it's like, well, that's interesting. It was a starting point. And that was the point. Just like your first podcast, your first drawing, your first book, your first sketches, they're not going to be great. But the point is you created the art. You created something that you can share, you can get some feedback on, and then it sets you up for the next thing. And that's simply what Jolly Roger War was. It was just setting me up, getting these ideas out into card form and starting the process.
So you start getting this feedback, you go to the drawing, you do these iterations. At what point do you get along the road where you say, I'm starting to get enough positive feedback here that I want to take this beyond something I'm making in my hotel room for my family. I want to take it to the next step. What is the input that you're getting that makes you think there's a potential there?
You see that in people's faces. You start getting some reactions like, hey, I want to play that again. Dad, can I play that again? I want to take this over to my friend's house.
Oh,
I started to get that reaction with some of the games that I was making. One of the early ones, Frog, Pig, Pug, was a little puzzle game that I had. And it was a matching puzzle game with a frog and a pig and a pug. And you're just trying to get combinations of 1, 2, and 3 and the different characteristics between all 3 of them. And my family really enjoyed playing this game. And so that was like, hey, you know what? This is something I should take action on. This is something that I can produce. And so then you take the next great leap, right? Which is, what does some art actually look like for this? Can I get a real prototype made? One of the great things about our business is that if you want to get a prototype made, you can have cards printed at your local print shop, and you can actually start getting even more information outside of family and friends, where you start testing it with different groups, different demographics, and start getting some reactions. And that was the next step that I took.
there's one thing that says you could take that step. And then there's another part of your mind that says, I want to take that next step. Because I can imagine your family liked it and you could say, cool, awesome, they like it. Let me make another game that they like. But you didn't just say that. You said, they like it. And now I want to put it in front of other people who might also like it. What were you thinking at that moment?
I had a need to actually produce something, wanted the confirmation of somebody purchasing it and saying, yes, this is of value. I want to take this and put this on my game shelf. And so when I started getting the positive feedback, I was like, I want to actually take the next step and produce this thing. You do have art for art's sake, but then you can make art and have it be commercially viable. And that's what I wanted. That was the next step that I wanted. I felt like it was like an internal need that I had to have fulfilled to actually create something and then get a bunch of units and then sell them. So somebody else go, you know what? Yes, I value that.
Yes, that really resonates, that idea of the validation that you get when
Yeah.
somebody else recognizes your creation, your art, and votes with their wallet that this is something that they want and care about. Were you in the
Yeah.
mindset of, I want to build a business, or were your aspirations, I want to be validated for the creativity that I have here?
It was a little bit of both. I've always had an eye and a mind for business. I do like both art and business. And looking at business itself is a game in a way to
Yeah,
me, too.
absolutely.
And everything along with game design, game theory can come in business as well, too. But I would be lying if I said I didn't want to have a successful business as well, because, I had the previous experience of running a business in the sales agency.
Okay.
I could see a pathway for success in a different product driven business, but also that was able to tie in my creativity and my love of games and gaming. So I very much did want that too. That was the driving factor for me and really the birth of Taco Cat Games.
So from the beginning, from that first game that you started producing, the aspiration was, and I want to grow this and make this a business. This is just the
Yes.
first step of more to come. And at that moment, what did you envision that this would become?
The vision of the business was fully as a side hustle when it first
Aha.
came to being. What I wanted was to scratch that creative itch that I
Yep.
have. I wanted to make games. I wanted it to be viable and I wanted it to be a side business. I wanted to be able to put my
Mm.
games up and put them up on Amazon or something like an Etsy or eBay. And have people purchase them. And that way I could sell the games and that could fund more creative, more games, maybe bigger games. That was simply the idea. A small company that would create family games, easy to learn, fully accessible, take away all the barriers of rules.
Okay, so for that aspiration of creating this side hustle, you have one game that you're professionally producing and putting on Amazon. Is that right? That's the
That is
picture of
correct.
what exists? Okay. And at this point, is this all self-funded? Okay.
It's fully self-funded.
So then tell me about what happens when you put it on Amazon.
I started with games like Frog Pig Pug, and then I worked on a game called Emoji Says. And so I learned some of the ins and outs of putting them up on Amazon. I built the relationships with my printing partners. And I can tell you, even with the first couple print runs that I did for my early prints, it was so nerve-wracking to send those funds because I'd never met these people in
Yeah.
person. They've ended up being wonderful partners. But I put them up on Amazon and we started to get some decent sales, and that was very fulfilling. And that led me to keep wanting to do this. I wanted to just keep adding to it. In 2016, I got the concept in my head for Taco Cat Go Cheese Pizza, which is now our flagship. And I did a small Kickstarter for that. And we had 104 backers and raised about $2,000, $2,400
And that was
in
the
terms of
first
games.
time you took outside capital for this
That
business.
was
Is
the
that
first
correct?
time I took any outside capital, and it's because in our business in games, Kickstarter works basically as its own marketplace. We were able to get a little bit of funds, not a ton, but it gave me some more validation and more
Yep.
like, hey, this is going to work. And with that game specifically, especially comparatively with the games that I had made previously, there was some electricity and magic around that game. And it's hard to kind of put into words what that
Mm.
actually is, but I could tell and I could feel it. This game is just different. The lineage was directly from this emoji-based game that I made. I pulled these emojis from it, and I created this game that was based off of a game called ERS and an Irish Snap, and it smashed a bunch of these concepts together with pulling these emojis, and it uses these really clear verbal cues of taco, cat, goat, cheese, pizza. And I tell you what, I played this, started playing it with my family and started playing it with friends, and the game just had legs. It just has juice. It has electricity. And we did this small Kickstarter, and people don't quite understand what I'm trying to do. It looks really odd to people. Taco Cat, Goat Cheese Pizza. The most common question I get is, what is that? Why? What are you doing? It seems very odd from the outside looking in. And I just believed so much in this game. I believed so much in this, and I could just tell the difference with the game. It just had this electricity that bought 10,000 units at print. I really only needed like 1,000 to fill the Kickstarter. but I just believed in it. And I knew that if I put the game in somebody's hands and they played it, that somebody would buy it. So I wanted the game to be a demo for itself, and it was cost effective enough for me to do that because it's only cost me $1 a copy. It's okay for me to hand that to somebody because I believed in my heart that somebody would buy it. And that ended up very much to be true. And so it started to scale up the ranks on Amazon. We had a couple of really cool viral video moments with it. A couple months into selling it on Amazon, I got an email from a company called VAT19 out of St. Louis. I had sent a bunch of demo copies to game cafes across the US, just blind. And they said, hey, we played this game in a board game cafe called Pieces Board Game Cafe in St. Louis, and we really like it. We want to sell it on our website. And my answer to them was the same answer that I gave to everybody when it came to Go Cheese Pizza was like, yes, let's do it. Sure. I was going to say yes to everything. That was my goal.
Yeah.
And so they put it up on their website, and like a week later, they contacted me and said, hey, we want to do a video for this game. And I'm like, okay, well, first let me check on your YouTube site to make sure you're not doing anything weird because I didn't know who they were. And so I went onto YouTube and they were getting like 4 million views a video. And so I'm like, yeah, let's get this thing on. And so that video, I think, has like 8 million views on it. That was another launch point for Taco Cat. And it just went up the ranks and we crawled our way up to the top 100, top 75, top 50, top 25. And then we got all the way to number 1 on dedicated deck card games. So slugging it out with Uno and classic card games like Skip Bo.
So as much as you believed in this game and you knew it could be successful, is the success that you saw on Amazon what you expected, or did that blow even you away of what
Oh,
happened?
it blew me away.
Yeah.
I had always told my wife that I just want to get the game into one store and I'll feel validated and feel good.
Yeah.
That goal always keeps moving, but seeing it climb up the ranks just absolutely blew me away. And it's far more viral than even I imagined. I knew the game was hot. I knew the game had electricity. I just didn't know how much it actually had.
Wow. And so as you watch it going up, are you just saying, hey, let's celebrate and just keep on going? Or does your mind click into a totally different gear of we have to do something? I don't even know what it is. We got to do something different now that we're in this stratosphere.
None of the steps give me full satisfaction. I always kind of let's move the goalposts a little bit.
Yeah,
I know that's not the healthiest viewpoint, but it's just who I am. It's like, what's the next thing? So for me, it's let's continue to build this thing. How big can we actually get it to be? And what happens from there? So what happens from there is we started getting contacted by retailers and from distributors, and they're like, hey, what are you doing with this product? We have requests for this product from Barnes & Noble, and then we signed a deal with a distributor, and we were able to get it into Target. Then from Target, we got it into Walmart, and then Kroger, and then Michael's, and chains like that across the country. It was really spectacular growth, but it wasn't solely because of the game. We were doing a ton of work in the behind the scenes too. Whether that's some guerrilla marketing efforts and taking the chance to mail it out blind, hitting the street, going from game store to game store, toy store to toy store, and showing it and demoing it. Being willing to look really out of place, like at a game convention. I just had a stack of Taco Cat Go Cheese Pizza and a for sale sign handwritten that says $5. And I'd have people walk past me as they're going to see the hot new game, and they'd like, what are you doing here? Kind of looks, and made it past all of those awkward things to get it to the spot where it's at today.
So it's clear you're putting in a tremendous amount of hard work to get it to where it is. Are you doing all of that while you are still working your day job?
Yes. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, I was doing that all still while doing my day job. And I still hadn't hit the point yet where I was ready to leave the security of the welding sales to move fully into the game thing, even though it was really growing at a fast clip. And it eventually got to a point where it forced me to make a decision.
Ah.
There were so many more things that could be done if I paid just full attention to it. There were so many things operationally. There's so many things sales-wise. There's so many things marketing-wise. There's so many things game creation-wise that it couldn't go on without the full undivided attention. And so it was either do something with that or do something with this. And so I made the decision to do the Taco Cat games and dive into the thing that I love because it needed the attention.
How was that decision for you? Was it easy and obvious or something you belabored?
It was a little bit challenging because I worked with my father We grew the agency together,
Yeah.
and he was getting a little bit older, and so it was a little bit of a challenging decision. But the beautiful thing was my father had always been an entrepreneur at heart himself, and he understood the draw of building a business yourself, your own things. He understood that better than anybody, even though it was still confusing to just about everybody from the outside looking in. Even if you saw the success of Taco Cat Coach's Pizza, it's hard to kind of envision kind of the scale of kind of what was happening with it, because you look at it, it's a small box, 60 cards, and it's a hand slapping game. And it's hard to visualize how big that business could actually be unless you're like fully immersed in it. And it's also hard to envision how big the game space actually is. So it can look odd if you think about it from an outside point of view. You're over 40, you've got 4 kids. Why are you doing this? That's not a very secure and stable thing to do. And that viewpoint is legitimate. But when you see the growth and you see the opportunity in the business, it can clear up.
Yeah.
Even at Taco Cat Games full time, I did have questions from family and friends like, "Hey, are you still doing that game thing?" And I had been doing it full time. I remember my brother-in-law asking me, "How's your real job?" I'm like, "My
Oh.
real job? What do you mean?" He's like, "Yeah, how's the welding thing going?" I'm like, "I haven't done that in 2 years, man. What are you talking about?"
That's hard. That's hard with naysayers and those doubts. It's so cool that your dad
Yeah.
was a voice of encouragement and also of saying, hey, you're a peer as an entrepreneur now.
I'm very thankful for that. He had a very unique experience because of his previous entrepreneurship experience.
Yeah.
So he knew what I was going through. In
Yeah.
fact, he was very much so like an advisor for me while he was still here with us. But
That's the best.
yeah,
And when you did decide to leave welding sales and focus on your business full time, you mentioned that you're someone who always is moving the goalpost. At
yeah.
that point, when you left that job, what did you aspire for it to be at that point?
I needed it to go beyond side hustle, right? So
Yeah.
when you take that leap, I've got people counting on me.
Mm.
So I need to make this happen now. It sounds like a lot of pressure, but any entrepreneur goes through this.
Sure.
And so you're going to make that bet on yourself. And that bet's going to not only be capital, but it's going to be, hey, I've got everything wrapped up into this.
Yeah.
So it's a leap that you're taking. But the decision was clear. The growth was there.
Yes.
The opportunity was there. So it was a hard decision, but it was the clear decision. I always kind of fall back on the love versus the like. You're only alive once. You got to go for the love. You got to go for what drives the passion. I love games. I love gaming. I got this growing business. How do I not take that leap? I got to,
Yes. Yes. And as decisions go, it's not as risky as it could have been. You didn't
Yeah.
quit welding sales before you even had a game in the market. You had so much data, so much
Yeah.
validation to look at to prove this wasn't just your dream. This was people voting and saying, hey, Dave, we want more from you. We
Yeah,
want more.
that's a very important point. I took the time to take the gut punches before I leapt in full time. With anything new that you're experiencing or anything new that you're building, you got to get through the bad first. And I had quite a few years of taking gut punches, games that didn't quite work out or the sales that didn't quite lift up to what I needed them to be. And by the time I was ready, the business needed me to jump in. So that was the difference. And I absorbed that while it was still a side hustle.
Smart, very smart. What do you think would surprise the Dave that was daydreaming while on the road doing sales about his first games? What are the big surprises or pivots that have happened along the way?
There's been so many surprises.
Yeah.
The Dave that was on the road selling, if you could see the Dave that was here in this office now and making games and following my dream, would really be astounded. First time I walked into Barnes& and Noble and saw my game on the shelf at Barnes& and Noble. It was an incredible moment. The time that we hit #1 on Amazon, and I saw Uno fall just behind Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, it was unbelievable to me. The other moments where we were in McDonald's in France, we had little Taco Cat Goat Cheese pizzas and the Happy Meals. It was wonderful. And then I was up for an award called the Spiel des Jahres that's given out in Germany for Game of the Year. And it was for Taco Kitten, who I worked on with Blue Orange, our partner in France. And it was just an unbelievable moment to be there. I want to kind of circle back to Barnes & Noble because it's a really interesting story about the lumps you take along the road. Barnes & Noble was the first retailer that we got into. And I saw it on the shelf and I was like, oh, my game's finally in a store. So the thing that I wanted, and the game is in this small box, and it was so tiny compared to every single game. Like the game box just didn't hold up compared to all the other games that were available. I'm like, I'm not going to sell any of these things. And we did sell a bunch of them, but that led us to going to a little bit larger retail box, which is the box that people commonly see in Target and Walmart.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a good example of how you had to do it to know. You didn't know
yeah,
when it was on your desk. You had to walk into the Barnes& and Noble and see it there to say, "Oop, that might not have been the best one. We're gonna
yeah.
we're
I
gonna
mean,
do a
that,
V2."
that, that is the truth. That is for sure the thing that I have found. In fact, I was talking about that today. We're releasing graphic novels. We released the first graphic novel, Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, here last year. We're talking about expanding on that effort. I know for sure we're going to find all types of blind spots, pitfalls. We just got to get in there and start breaking some eggs. We got to, because otherwise we're just not going to get there. You don't run into anything foolishly and head first, but you got to start somewhere. You got to let yourself make some mistakes so you can learn.
Well, Dave, I want to end on the idea of moving the goalposts again. You are continuing to grow this business every day. I want to hear more about where the goalposts are now. What are you most excited about that is coming up for you in the future that's getting you jazzed to stay out?
I am so jazzed about where we are and what our brand is doing and what we mean to games and gaming. Fast, fun, and friendly. I mean, that is Taco Cat Games in a nutshell. So can I make games that you can learn in less than a minute? And I mean it, like less than a minute, and you have a great time for 15, 20 minutes. And we bring everybody to the table, inclusive. Can I get cross-generational? I want everybody at the table. And I believe that we're succeeding in that. But where do we go from now? This year, we're releasing 2 new board games. We've got Go-Kart coming out. It's got all of our Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza characters riding around in go-karts, going around a track, and you're rooting for your favorite go-kart. And then we also have a game called Points for Everything. It is like the easiest game you can possibly learn how to play. The tagline is no setup, no stress, just play. The way you play this game is you unfold the board, choose whatever character you want to be, flip over a card and do what the card says, and you earn points for it. That's it. That's how you play the game.
You've outdone yourself.
I'm excited. I think we got some cool things.
Oh, I'm excited to play them. It seems like your mission, it really is a decision-making framework. Anything you come up with has to meet those criteria of being fast, fun, and friendly, and the whole family enjoying it together. And that kind of gives you how you decide about what you should do next.
That's exactly it. We obviously have all kinds of ideas, and we have game submissions that come in to us as well, too. And the first thing that we're doing is we're looking at, through that framework, is fast, fun, and friendly. And I want my customers to be fans. I want them to really love what we do because I really love these games and I want to share these experiences with people.
That was Dave Campbell talking about his journey building Taco Cat Games. Here are my 3 favorite lessons from that episode. 1, always be prototyping. Dave never went anywhere without a set of blank cards and a pen in his pocket, so he could always be prototyping new games. He never knew when inspiration would strike. It was something he did as a hobbyist, and it's something he still does today as a professional game designer. Number 2, train yourself to feel the electricity. Dave prototyped a lot of games. He played them with people and he watched their reactions. That gave him a huge data set for what it really looks like when people love a game. When he put Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza in front of people, he just felt the electricity. People were saying, I want to play that again. I want to take that to my friend's house. He knew it was a hit, in part because he had such a big data set of information from other prototypes he had put in front of people to measure it against. Number 3, you can gather a lot of data with a side hustle. While Taco Cat Games was still a side hustle, Dave got to take his lumps when the stakes were lower. By the time he decided to quit and go all in, he had so much data and so much confidence that the risk felt a lot smaller than it might have looked from the outside. This is Dana Moriello, and I can't wait to see you next week on This Is a Thing.